It's like pseudo British with like a little bit of Chinese flair on it.
Hmm. Interesting.
A Singlish.
Am I ready for Wednesday or Thursday, Jaxson?
Nope, I haven't memorized my lines yet. Well, I memorized them in that class last
That's
Thursday.
true. I haven't memorized the calling by name lines at all.
Nice.
But I've read them. I'm like, okay, I have like the Army Hammer rule, so it's like always like one liners. So I was like, chill.
Is she making you do the scene from outside of like the
Statue.
picture? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would do a fucking English accent, bro. It pisses me off.
Yeah, I do a scene from the Phantom Thread. It's the fucking asparagus.
It doesn't even sound like that.
No. No damn the other.
I was
Like remember 235? I was like, I know Roger Deakins, but like,
yeah. But he's English, isn't he?
yeah, he actually professionally goes by Sir Roger Deakins.
What a pussy.
That's what I'm saying.
This is Ben Kingsley.
Sir Ben Kingsley.
Yeah.
That is a horrible actor, man.
It's good in some stuff.
I think he's fine. I don't know about a serious role. I think it's kind of funny. Or
Was like if you think of one role from Ben Kingsley,
the what is the Iron Man, whatever.
really? Like the first one you think of? For me, it's Shutter Island. I've only seen Shutter Island once.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the only thing I think of. That's something. Yeah, I don't know why. That's like I just think that doesn't seem bad.
I mean, honestly, if I'm being 100% honest, the first movie that popped in my head was when he did with Bonnie and Clyde, where he switches bodies with them because he's getting too
Oh
old.
yeah.
That was a shit movie.
Shit, yeah. I mean, I know exactly. That's like some shit you just find on like TV at like 2 o'clock on a Sunday. What is it called, dude? It's like
That's something you
my
find for like
time.
$3 at Big Lots or something.
Yeah, to rent, you never return. You just pay it off because it's so cheap.
Oh, Blake Lively's pretty fire for a plot.
Okay, we're talking about types.
Sorry, my girlfriend's Chinese.
Yeah, and I'm like not really into blondes, but like a few like Margot Robbie, like her is like an exception. That's why you said that. Selfless,
There you go,
self-slashless. That's horrible movie, dude. I really don't like Ryan Reynolds, so.
He's Canadian.
Okay, so everyone's here. I think we're just gonna go around the room and like give off like a brief summary of our beats. And
Is this your recording that?
yeah,
Oh, okay, cool.
so
Watch what you say.
it's super warm.
It's always warm in the library.
Yeah, it's awful.
Check out the shit, Jake.
So who would like to go first?
Whoa, hey. Let me come back.
I'm gonna do eeny, meeny, miny, mo off the Google Drive.
Mm.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tiger by his toe. If he hollers, let him go. My mom.
You gotta do it like the
very
German
best
one.
and you are it. Eric.
Okay.
It's German.
So
Holler.
Oh,
Yeah.
James.
Yeah.
my script,
You go read your
basically act one follows a guy named Mike as he goes on a bad date and then goes home and like just gets confronted with
I want to interrupt, but
what's up?
what before you say your beat sheet, like say your blog line.
Oh,
Yeah, so then I have like a better idea of
The
like
title, log line,
Yeah, yes, but
favorite color.
I have like a working.
it just kind of reminds all of us what the story is.
I
Just, like,
have a
digging.
working title too. In
my
my
house,
house, makes
I have 329 script, so
You can make it up too. We won't know.
So the struggle of being a runt in the 21st century is a dramedy that focuses around the character of Mike as he struggles with his dating life and keeping tabs on his family. Ultimately discovering the true meaning of love or better. And so essentially act one follows him as he's just kind of beaten down. He's gets told by his roommate he's moving out to go live with his girlfriend. And it's like last minute, so he's now struggling to find a roommate. And he throws a party to hang out with his friend for the last time, who's moving distance away. and it goes awful, and he tries to kill himself on accident. On accident.
How does that work?
He drinks a bunch and then takes some acid, and then he stabs himself in the arm while he's hallucinating a bunch.
That's valid.
And
Like Friday night.
It's like a 20th birthday.
he moves. After this, we get into Act 2, where he moves in with his sister, who's kind of a delinquent and doesn't really like him. He doesn't really get it. And over the course of Act 2, you learn more about Mike, like how he lost his father to suicide. And it kind of left him like a little bit of a hole inside with no like, I don't know, his idol was not exactly who he thought he was. And he kind of just doesn't understand why he did what he did. But he continues to explore the dating field while trying to get closer with his sister, who, even though he tries, only pushes her away more. There's a mom and another sister character in the script. The mom is like super lax with him because she sees him as like, her only son. And so he kind of gets special treatment because of it. Not that he's any less of a delinquent than his sister. Then he has an older sister who works a ways away. What's up?
So when you say that he gets special treatment, is it like he is?
Because he's a man, he's seen as more responsible and more like able to take care of himself.
Is it more of like he is allowed to do whatever he wants and she kind of like makes excuses for him? Or is it more like
It's
could you
okay,
describe
so
the relationship a little bit
for
more?
example, when he tries to kill himself, taking a bunch of acid, instead of being punished for it per se, he gets full rent free to just live with his sister, so his mom can keep tabs on him, but also so she has a way to keep tabs on him.
So is it kind of like more like she's like babying him?
I was
That's
gonna,
kinda what you're-
yeah.
what I was gonna say, the word I was gonna use is, would you say it's more of like an enabling relationship or, yeah, okay. That could be
You
interesting.
Kind of enable him to just like keep doing what he's doing, even though it's not like necessarily good for his health.
Or, yeah, really helpful for him. I think that would be like a cool relationship, like the way she interacts with him would be really cool to build on.
He also hallucinates this guy who's just like a superior version of himself. And the guy constantly lambasts him for his own insecurities. And I'm working on it. I'm trying to make it funny because that's where a lot of the comedy comes in.
I like guys.
It's also the antagonist that he has to overcome in the script at the end. Act 3 basically follows him as he has a really bad experience with a girl and basically just doesn't really know if he's lovable in a way that like enables him to be romantic with other people. And that kind of like gets to him to a point, and then there's a subplot with his sister and her boyfriend, and her boyfriend's a horrible asshole, and his sister wants to get an abortion, but her boyfriend doesn't like support that at all. In fact, he like hits her over it for even like mentioning it. So kind of stands up for her, gets his ass whooped, but his best friend from earlier in the script comes in to visit that day and it works out. And his best friend's like a jacked, like, gym bro. So he like beats the shit out of the guy. And then he kind of comes to terms that it comes in many different forms. And it's not all about romantic relationships. You gotta love other people intellect too, like your friends and stuff like that. And then that's how the movie ends. So
I was just gonna
that's it so
say,
far.
sorry,
No, I know you're trying to talk earlier.
your story seems very character dense.
Yes.
And I feel like if you're trying to flush out, especially the main character and his journey along with kind of his alter ego, if you want to say that.
I wouldn't say alter ego, but I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to build that relationship between the two and contrasting them. I feel like the more characters you add to that, just be careful that you're not falling away from having that character be the center of attention and then let them complement that.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
How important is Guy?
Guy just shows up every once in a while when he's kind of at his worst, or like when he's like not in the best of moods. I
Big mouth.
suppose.
So it's like.
Yeah, kind of like Big Mouth, the fucking horny monster,
Yeah.
Big Mouth. Yeah, whenever your main character's down bad,
Yeah.
it's kind of like that.
So at the end of the third act, when he has like that realization of how like love comes in different like many ways or forms, how does he have that realization to make his ass kicked, or like how do we?
It comes after he gets his ass kicked. I kind of want to like parallel it with him like trying to fight back against Guy,
Mhm.
who I would just call him Guy.
Sure, sure.
Buff Guy.
But when we get to that ending, like as he realizes it, how are you gonna like get the audience to kind of like understand that theme as well, that realization from that character?
He has a really like he finally gets a good conversation with his sister where she explains to him that even though she doesn't like him, he reminds her too much of dad. And like the fact that he like bottles up all these emotions and doesn't really wear his heart on his sleeve. And
Mhm.
that's the like because the whole shock of his dad killing himself is that nobody knew anything. They didn't know how he was feeling or anything like that. And his sister never wants to be put in that position again where she has to care about someone in a way that they might hurt them unexpectedly. And so he kind of accepts that, okay, I don't want to be like my father. I want to be my own person. And I also want to like be there for my family, like in a way that's like he can interact with them without feeling like an outcast or like he's like worse off than all of them.
Sure.
I don't know. It's hard. Yeah.
No, I get you. Because once you like finish writing, I think you're gonna have a better like broader idea of how you want to end it and whatnot. But I think one thing to be really, 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 really careful about is that I remember when we first talked about all of our stories, you said how this is kind of like a dark comedy, dramedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as from what you said, you talked about like suicide and abortion, two really like very tiptoey subjects to have in a comedy,
Yeah.
story. So you be very careful that you're not like in a
I
sense
think-
in disrespectful.
I'm not trying to say whether or not you can't have an abortion. That's not
No, I get like it's not the main like center idea, but like you're having a comedy story, you're adding these like really serious elements in it. So just make sure you're
But it's
able.
enough.
Yeah, so just make sure you're able to blend the seriousness and the comedy well together, where it doesn't feel like kind of like a spoof or like satire on these things, and it's like, oh, you could be funny at this point. Oh, let's be serious about this point, and it has that sort of like it gels well together. That's what I'm saying.
It just doesn't come out in poor taste. You're able.
Yeah, poor taste. It's very well timing if you're gonna make jokes about it. Like it's more like, oh, let's laugh
It's
about
not,
it.
it's not really joking about it per se. It's more like these are just things that happen.
Sure, sure. But you get what I'm saying, right?
I do.
And just to like add on to that, just to kind of, I don't know, give like more of a comedic perspective to it when dealing with something like that, like it's very authentic that like when really serious dark shit happens in real life, we make a joke out of it. Like that's how we cope with a lot of things.
Yeah.
So like staying within that like humanistic perspective of like, oh
I'm
shit.
not gonna like have a character laugh at someone.
Oh no, not like that. I'm not saying that was the
It's
goal,
like-
but
Yeah, just don't
makes
force it.
sense.
Yeah, make sure it makes sense and it's not like, oh shit, that was really like I'm not saying I'm gonna get offended, but it's kind of
I know what you mean.
tonality.
There's a level of darkness that you can delve into.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. Anything else? I have the whole thing on Google Drive if you want to read through it. It probably explains it a lot better.
I was looking through the first act, yeah, and then I was like half mine was
what has changed since the initial beat sheet that you showed Jude and I last week?
Honestly, I added more with the mom character.
Okay.
I want her to be there more frequently and kind of like I want like I'm trying to build up like this natural confrontation between him and his mom and like how she like has these false expectations of him when he's really like no better than like his father, who's also a fuck up. But like he still looks up to him a lot. And she wants to know like he wants to know why she enables him so much. Like why she doesn't care like what he does. Or when she does like care, it's like so facile. Like first of all, like, oh, are you okay, honey? Like she doesn't really ask him what's wrong. She's just like, oh, you're fine though, right? So it's kind of like that.
I really like the relationship you're building between them. Like with the whole, like I said, like that enabling perspective and then what you're working on right now, I think that'll add another really important and interesting layer to the story. I really like that.
Is part of why he's like kind of fucked up because he wants to like test the limits with his mom.
I don't really think of it like exactly like that, but I could definitely see that perspective, like just to see how far he can go before she like gets mad or upset with him.
Mhm.
But it's more like he just does these things because he thinks it'll make him happy, but it really doesn't.
It could also be the opposite. You also see it as a way where like he keeps doing these things because he thinks his mom doesn't love him. And he's kind of waiting for that one point, that one threshold to pass, and she like kind of gets on his ass. Like he wants,
Yeah.
or it could be
He
it's read
knows.
either way.
He knows his mom loves him, but it's kind of like he doesn't he doesn't know where that love stems from. He doesn't give her a good reason to love him. He's
Like it's just kind of like she's just loving just
like,
because
he just doesn't understand. He just
Yeah.
doesn't get it. And it's kind of like he's his only son. And in Chinese, like, social dynamics, if you're like the only Chinese son in your family, you're kind of like seen as like the one that's gonna carry on the family will and the name and like
Sure.
be the hot shit of the family at some point. Kind of like the head of the table in like fucking mafia movies, like where the son's like, I'm going to raise you to take care of the family. So
Are these characters Chinese?
yeah,
Okay.
I just I find it easier that way because I'm Chinese.
Sure, yeah.
So
That's fair enough. I just didn't know that.
yeah,
Just make sure like with like because that's a very interesting part of the story.
I don't. Yeah, I
Make
don't
sure you
think,
kind of tender it as much as you want.
I don't think race is like particularly important to my film, but like the more I think about it, the more I will try to like write it from like a Chinese perspective, like living in America.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen Fresh Off the Boat, which is kind of like funny, pokes fun at like Chinese social dynamics here in the US, but without like, making fun of them per se. It's just kind of like
Like a self-aware.
the way they live is different.
I think that's a really important aspect of the story from like a personal perspective. I mean, we all write from our own experiences and what we see, and like just like coming from somebody who has that background, it'll show in the script.
And
I think that's really
Yeah,
important.
the main character definitely doesn't like conform to the ideals, but he that's part of the reason why he's like so like confused about like why his mom continues to support him, even though he's a fuck up. So yeah,
Mhm.
Fair enough.
anything else?
No, I think it's like I think it's coming along really nicely.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what else you do with it and how you flesh it out fully.
I'm glad. Yeah, I have the first 20 pages up, so Jude,
I had read some of it. I didn't end up finishing it, but I want to
No
read it
worries.
by tonight.
I will probably have 2 more pages and by sometime this week. So my period button's broken on my keyboard.
Yeah, how did that?
It's fine. I don't know. It just stopped.
Just didn't want
Yeah.
to work one day.
At first it was QWEROIOUP. Then it was the period. So
Interesting.
yeah, I've gone through like 3 keywords.
Sorry, man.
It's fine.
Back to eating monument. Let's see if anyone else has a volunteer.
I'll go.
You go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Saved it.
So, but you have 2 on here. Which one's that?
It's version 2. Yeah, that's updated from today. My Beachy is not as fleshed out as the other ones that I read. But so basically,
My favorite
Okay.
part is bad guys close in.
something's on my my log. Herself in a viral apocalypse, she and a lone survivor fight through resisting forces to make it to their respective hometowns. And so I've fleshed out some of the location stuff. So we're starting in Pennsylvania. And Sam, my main character, she's been off the grid since she was like a teenager or something. And we see like her life off the grid in this first part and like how she does it, what she does. We see her like going into town to do laundry, get groceries, socialize, basic necessities. And then she just goes back to live in her truck. And then someday she goes into town and nobody's there. And she's like, what's going on? And she finds out through little details in town, like newspaper clippings and stuff, that basically the apocalypse has begun because there was a virus that was really fast moving and fast killing, and nobody was able to stop it. And now there's like nobody left alive except for a few people. And then she runs into somebody in the city named Paige. And they decide to stick together because they have like aligning goals. They're both from New Mexico, and so they decide that they want to take a little road trip to get to their hometowns in New Mexico, because Paige wants to see if any of her family made it in the apocalypse. And Sam wants to see her hometown in ruin, basically. And then I have like a tentative route proposed in my beat sheet, but that's like whatever. And during this road trip, Sam and Paige get like really close and they fall in love. Um, and I don't have like exact scenes planned out for this. I definitely want a big scene with them in Tennessee when we stop in Tennessee. Um, and the midpoint of my script is just like them realizing how much they care for each other. And then bad guys close in, they run into other people, they have to worry about the disease. And like when they decided to work together, they figure it's just two of us. We've been fine, so we'll probably be fine. But running into a whole group of people, it's like you don't know who's infected or who could get infected and spread it. And Sam loses her car, which has been with her like as long as she's been off the grid. And then I'm still kind of figuring out like the lowest point. But after that whole situation, they get reunited, they make it to their destinations, and yeah, that's how it goes.
Okay. So you mentioned that they've been off the grid, perhaps just to make characters been
Yeah.
off the grid since she was a teenager.
Mhm.
So when does the story start, or what age do you mostly develop?
She's like 30 when the
Oh wow,
apocalypse
okay, that's
starts.
quite a lot.
Yeah.
So how do you plan to explain that time jump and the development she's made as a person over that?
I'm not really gonna start it when she first moves off the grid, so it's gonna start just a few months before the apocalypse hits, and that's when we'll see how she's living off the grid.
Okay.
But it'll be like implied that she's been doing this for a long time.
I kind of further that is like when Sam and Paige talk. I'm assuming when they connect, that's when we're gonna find out about like how she was like she was an orphanage, right?
Yeah, I think
That's what you
so.
were going for. How are you gonna able to like kind of explain that in a way that's not very on the nose?
I'm not sure
No,
yet.
okay, it's fine. Just I feel like just be careful that it's not like, oh, like I was in an orphan, my parents left, they don't love me, so I'm like, fuck this world, I'm off the grid. Like, yeah, I hate everyone. So I feel like, throughout the story kind of show kind of that bitterness that Sam has
Mhm.
for, her home, the people, and kind of like
Yeah.
just the environment in general. Because then you kind of like have ideas, like you wonder about her backstory, like why did she go off the grid? And maybe
Yeah.
like Paige is trying to pry and like what's going on? Like why are you off the grid? I don't know. Something along those lines where it's a bit more of a mystery. So when it does happen, it kind of has a little more of an emotional like bite to it. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I was just gonna kind of add on to that. I also wanted to say before that, I like that you did the research on the highway route, the 81 to 75 to 20. That's really cool. But yeah, to kind of add on to that and just to kind of give an idea on how you could portray her past without, again, just explaining it, like expository. Um, there could be, like you said, kind of like some crying from
Yeah.
Paige. And from what I understand in Sam's character, she is not very much a people person.
Mhm.
So that could be like a really quick turn off. So whether Sam like snaps at her or anything of that nature, can kind of, the audience can infer what's the backstory through that, and her willing to not explain it
Mhm.
will kind of explain to us what it is.
Mhm.
Just something to think about as you go forward.
Mhm.
Yeah, like maybe like they are connecting, or there's some sort of thing that like triggers her. Like maybe they talk about like Paige's parents, or like something that has some implications. Like oh, maybe she didn't have loving parents, or and that's where like Sam can like close off on Paige. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Just some thoughts.
For sure.
Yeah, wondering maybe that's like
you said you didn't really have an idea for like the low point, maybe like they get some kind of argument like that, and then like they split off and like something happens and they like need to find each other again.
Yeah, I could be like Sam's, but like, you know, I don't really need you. Like I've been fine for the past like 20 some years. It's like, why do I need you now? You know?
Yeah.
And then it comes to that point where it's like, because like you're in love or whatever.
That's my favorite point in the beat sheet. They're in love, smiley face.
Yeah. So like, yeah, like I don't need you, but like there could be some high stakes right after they have to like follow. And that's they come back together because the unconditional love. So
Yeah.
I think something that's gonna make your script really like fun to read is everyone here has seen Lord of the Rings, right? You know, the Journey to Mordor.
What
I
is-
was gonna say, no one here, no one here had. But you know. But the journey to Mount Doom. Yeah, like I feel like as like things are going to get worse for them after they get their track, and they're going to suffer along the way.
Mhm.
But I think the payoff should be really like rewarding in some way, or at least like for them. And I know that it's kind of their relationship and like the climax of like their love for each other is like, you know, what we're bent on seeing. At least that's what it feels like. And you know, I think you can make it very painful for them to on the journey. I think don't stray away from like
Some pessimism.
some hurt.
Oh yeah.
That's it.
well, like, I know Eric, he'd be thinking like Lord of the Rings. I said it earlier, I'd be thinking like how the Grinch stole Christmas. And like he's all the way like up in the mountains and like Pluto
Yeah.
and whatnot. But like I think one of the most interesting parts is that like these are two characters in a really big world. This world's falling apart, like it's just a big apocalypse. I think that's actually very interesting because I feel like you watch certain movies like that that have a big, you know, story, like atmosphere, like I don't know, let's just go off on a let's say Blade Runner 2049. Big atmosphere, big world, but it's a very small scale story. So I think it'd be very interesting, like there could be like conversations about the world, but like it's not, you know, big enough because they don't know the world as much as like as anyone else does.
Yeah.
So like it kind of add more of like a grounded look. Like they don't know much, and I think that'd be very interesting to like scale it back, even though like it's a very ambitious world that you're kind of creating. So,
Mhm.
but I mean, however you want to do it. But
Kind of going off of that, the road trip that they're taking, that's 30 plus hours. And I don't know, an apocalypse, that's probably a little bit slower, so let's say 40 plus hours. It's a
Yeah.
long ass time to be on them.
Yeah.
How do you plan on keeping us still engaged while they're going on that long ass journey?
Mhm.
Because I was gonna say, I feel like, not that you're gonna go by the hours that they're on the road, but let's say you get 30 hours in.
Yeah.
you're 3/4 of the way there, and you're just like, fuck, like, I don't know what else they can do with the goddamn car. Like,
Yeah.
and you could probably definitely change that if you want to. There's like pit stops, we're out of gas, gotta get
Yeah,
a car,
no, for sure.
or there's bad people, I don't know, or there's like a huge like crash on the interstate and they have to find a different route that's like sketchy or I don't know, but like different pit stops that adds more intrigue, or you can even do like a time jump if you want.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
And then to kind of add on to that, if you do, you know, like you have these different locations that you want to do the scenes in, making it fun and enjoyable and entertaining is one thing, but also in the same sense, like making sure that the things that occur help flesh out your characters even more as time goes on. I know that's somewhat of like a simplistic comment,
No, that makes
but
sense.
you know, even if it's like, I don't know, they find water balloons or something like that, like a fun little game, whatever it may be, like make sure that their characters are shown through
it
these
creates life in
Yeah.
a dead
Yeah.
world. So I mean, yeah, it's like maybe every stop, kind of like what Mitch was saying, like it's some sort of like bond and like memory that they'll share, like you said, water balloons, or it could be something like really small or big or whatever. But yeah, I feel like that would be a little more interesting than just like a really long road trip and it's like a time to go over to here, you know? It's kinda
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like ain't no way you're driving that long. There's no problems in this apocalypse.
No, yeah, there's
So,
definitely gonna be problems.
sure, yeah.
I think that's a great point that you don't want to have page fillers just to have page fillers.
Yeah.
just to
Exactly. Don't
get
just
in
like
there.
dip.
Everything is needed.
Like each scene has to somehow enhance the story or improve the characters built upon.
Yeah.
Very cool.
This is something I remember you were talking about, like over the Zoom a while ago, but like, I remember you said like, she wants to see her home in ruin or whatever.
Mhm.
Like, why? I forgot what exactly. Like, why exactly? Is it like? I don't think it's with malice, is it? It's just kind of like,
No, it's like just because that was the place that kind of like turned her off of being in society. And now it's like it's gone. Like there is no society left there. So it's kind of a moment of closure for her to be able to see the place that brought her to ruin come to ruin.
Actually, I have a question. That's actually a good thing you brought that up. Is that does she have to be an orphan for her to like go off the grid? Like, could there be a different reason why? Because I feel like it's kind of like extraneous that she was a young age, was already an orphan, and she wants to leave this town. Like, I feel like there could be a different reason. It's much bigger that makes her want to leave.
I was thinking about the possibility of her leaving with somebody else.
Mhm.
Like they both decided to go off the grid and leave society.
Mhm.
And then the other person like didn't have the constitution to see it through and left her.
So I feel like that would be a little like interesting because then she's like more closed off, like she doesn't want to be loved. So I feel like the main theme, one of the main themes of the story is love.
Mhm.
And I think that would make it more interesting. I mean, you could probably make her an orphan still, but I feel like the main reason for her to leave is not because she's an orphan.
Yeah.
But there's gotta be something else more. I don't know, that's just how I see it. Because I feel like it's kind of an extreme thing. Because when you're young, you don't know any better as to like, oh, my parents left me, I'm gonna leave this shithole town. Right? It's not the town's fault, it's the parents' fault. So like that could be like a pushover for like, oh, I want to talk to you. So I would probably think about the logistics on that a little bit.
Maybe her parents are like Heisenberg or some shit, and like destroy the town from the inside with drugs and
But
like
like obviously it's like racist or something. I don't know. Whoa, whoa. Oh, that's too much, man. My bad.
Plan.
That was crossing the line.
maybe they aren't like accepting. She's a lesbian, right? Maybe they aren't accepting.
Maybe it is like a small racist town or like homophobic town. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
I mean, they are going through the deep south halfway through the journey.
Mhm.
Some shit could go down there.
They come like the 80s too, and they don't like homosexuals at all.
I didn't write this down. Let me go find this. But I was talking to some friends about this and they were like, what if Sam is like a Stonewall lesbian? Like if she was like a teenager in the late 60s. So then I was like, what if I said it in the late 80s, early 90s?
I think it's going to be way more interesting because one, that point would be way more like logical. Two, think about like in terms of survival, they don't have the best technology at the time, so it's way
Yeah.
more like the stakes are a little bit higher, you know, where it's like whereas like a self-driving car, fucking.
You have to do your research though, because some roads may not exist back then.
Those interstates you should be
You have to do research on everything when you're doing like you stick to a period. It's like what from like the dialogue and the dialect that people use, and yeah, it does make it a little bit more difficult, but it could be really fun.
Yeah, but also since the world's over, don't need that much,
Wait,
research too.
the-
Because you're creating your own world
Yeah,
within an old world from before. So I mean, it's kind of like gun ho, but in terms of like logistics, like roads or like pop culture references, or if they're going to vehicles, or if they're going to a gas station to buy like a bag of chips, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
like Jack Links wasn't even created in 1960, so you just gotta be like,
Bluetooth in the truck.
Yeah, they're eating potato chips that didn't.
they're
even
listening
exist
to like
until 30
Little
years.
Yachty. So
Walk to Poland.
no, I'm not gonna hear it. But yeah.
But that could definitely be a fun idea to work with. It's like doing it. And like you said, you had said like a Stonewall participant would be like that would also just enhance the backstory even
Yeah.
more. Like that'd be very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any other questions for us?
I don't think so.
Well, you're in charge of picking whoever.
Oh, that's right.
What, Jaxson? All right.
It actually is too.
Alright.
Oh, I should probably put my new.
You say you wait till.
Yeah, wait till Erik gets back.
Alright.
He's like, hear me out.
Hear me out.
We're gonna make a movie about a brother and a sister in a galaxy far, far away.
Hear me out. There's no people
No people. Have you guys seen
It's just
Yes.
Star Wars. I haven't seen it.
So The answer is yes. But it would be so much stronger if it was a 30-minute short film.
Okay.
Because I really like the gimmick is really good and intriguing, and you can sound like an asshole talking about all the reasons why it's good. But bottom line is it's good. But after a while, you're like, okay, like I get it. It's almost like the slowest burn of slow burns possible.
Oh, boy.
But
I just know all the film crews were drooling over it. I'm just like,
it's really good, and like it totally plays with like the human psyche, and like you convince yourself.
poltergeist kind of.
It's the one quote I kept seeing online was Poltergeist if David Lynch directed it. And I was like, okay, I guess so. But it's
Jackson's favorite. I forgot the question. Hear me out.
but yeah, it's definitely really cool. And then once you find the backstory of like how it came to be, it's even cooler.
Oh yeah, I heard it's like a small budget, like 2 dudes. Was it 2 guys, right, or 1 dude?
It was one dude,
One-
and he
Two
did it
girls,
with
one cup.
12,000 Canadian
Small
dollars.
budget, yeah.
So that's like 10 grand.
Yeah.
Filmed it in his childhood home
Mhm.
with his childhood toys. So that makes it
That's
creepier.
hella creepy.
Oh,
And then he got like over like $1 million in the box office.
yeah. So what happened was it was in the film festival cycle, right? It was just like going through a bunch of film festivals all over the world. And
So much of elitists were just spreading. They're like, "Oh, Skid Row the best horror movie in ages." I'm like, "What?"
it leaked online on like Reddit, and a
That's
bunch of
right, it
Redditors
leaked,
found it,
yeah.
and they were like, "Yo, what the fuck is this?" And so they just
They
started
got
sharing
viral,
it, and it
yeah.
just blew up.
Yeah.
I actually also recently found out the director has a YouTube channel. And what he does on his YouTube channel is he has his subscribers send him their nightmares, and he recreates them.
Okay.
Oh, that's
And he has like
that,
YouTube
dude.
videos, and it's very and so like Cinema Ring is like his
Nightmare.
childhood area, his childhood
That's
home, like
insane.
his like so when you find that out, it's like even more intriguing.
I bet that messed him up.
You should watch it.
Yeah.
That's why he's
If
making.
you get a chance to watch it in theaters, because I'm
Yes.
not gonna lie, it's
Is it
kind
still
of
in
hard to
theaters?
not
I
watch.
don't think it's here.
Yeah, if you watch it at home after, you're gonna be like,
Yeah,
dude, you saw it in theaters.
yeah.
I'm gonna
You guys, are you a big horror?
Sound.
You're a horror.
Yeah, because like didn't like just not just
That's
stop
a horror.
for like a minute, and I was just like,
Mitch, are you a big horror guy?
So I actually never was until
Until,
a
like,
couple
recent?
years ago, and I watched, all the classics.
Yeah.
And then I watched all the new ones that were like really shitty. So like I'm a fan of horror, but I wouldn't say I'm the biggest.
If you want like a good horror film that's like fun, I was just at Sundance, saw this movie called Talk to Me. It was so good. A24 actually bought it. I don't know when it's coming out, but that shit is like absolutely fun, like wild. Like everyone was like screaming in the theater. But it's pretty much set in like Australia, and they have like this toy where it's like a clay hand. And you would touch the hand, you'd be like, talk to me, and you'd get possessed. And you're in there for like a minute, it'll time you before they take you out. And this girl's about this, it's about this girl whose mom died, and all of a sudden one of her friends gets possessed by her mom. And she's like, what the fuck? I gotta know like more about this. And then it's like chaos. But yeah. So fun.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I got you guys. I got you guys.
adding to my
The inside
letterboxd
scoop.
watch
The
list.
inside scoop from Utah. Yeah.
All right, let's get weird.
Okay, it's a little strange. Okay, and there's definitely what
I said quirky even.
well, I mean maybe
Let's run it. Run it.
there's it's not like all the way fleshed out also, but so Jack is the photographer for the local newspaper, or whatever, and his friend Charlie goes missing, and he finds photographs, negatives that he doesn't remember taking. All right, I forgot to make a log line after I edited it, so I can just freestyle it. Anyways, he basically starts to lose his mind.
How? Just magically.
So so
Just felt like
I don't know if this will land. Something I thought of doing is I don't know how to describe it either. Like he his character is linear throughout the story, but the story isn't linear. That makes sense.
That makes sense.
So like
Wiggly into it.
What do we?
so he like wakes up and he doesn't remember much.
Yeah.
So, like he remembers like like his name and his job and his friends and shit. He doesn't remember like recent history, like the couple days before.
I think the best way for you to describe this, describe the story, then describe the character, since they're both not linear.
Okay, so
Or describe the character.
Well,
Do the character first, then the story.
all right, the character first. Jack is crazy. He's psychotic.
You've done it
He's
now.
schizophrenic. He
Okay.
sees things, but not all the time.
Sorry, is he hallucinatory or is he schizophrenic?
Yeah, he's schizophrenic. Yeah. So he hears things and sees things. Schizophrenic. He's a schizo. And how else to describe him?
He's not all there.
He's not all there. Yeah, he's not all there.
Did he used to be?
Does he portray himself like he is?
To his friends. So yeah, he kind of
Are his friends real?
yes, his friends are real. His friends are real.
Okay. We're asking a lot of
Like
like
you'd be able to pick up on.
I feel like they probably know to a degree.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably true. Yeah.
To a degree. They probably don't know how severe it is. But anyways, so
There's plenty of ways of people that aren't there.
yeah. So this all right, so the story he wakes up, he doesn't remember anything. He gets a call from his friend Ben and it's like, hey, have you heard from Charlie? He's like, no, I haven't heard from Charlie. Oh, Charlie's his roommate, by the way.
Okay.
So he like looks around the apartment, Charlie's gone. Charlie's real.
But Charlie's him.
Yes, but not all the time.
Okay, he's schizophrenic.
He's schizophrenic. Yeah.
Okay.
So then he basically just like he's probably just at some girl's place or some shit. I don't know. He's probably got really hungover last night. Probably I don't remember last night. He just goes to work. I don't know that much about newspapers. I need to do some research on newspapers and like photography and shit, but it's not like pivotal to the story. He just like
So maybe he doesn't have to work for a newspaper instead.
I like looked up photography jobs and was like real estate photography. I'll figure it out. But I also have him as like a columnist, whatever. Anyways, so he's like he's working or whatever, and there's like this abandoned factory or whatever, and he's got like a story about that shit because he was like petition to get torn down. So he leaves work early and he goes to the dentist. I don't know if it's gonna be the dentist somewhere because he meets this girl Natalie, but I don't want to make it like please like, oh, they need a bookstore, oh, they need a coffee shop.
Did they sound like that?
So, yeah, exactly like
That's
how they interact.
That's my favorite part.
I'm sold.
They meet somewhere, maybe a dentist or whatever. They start talking about cavities and shit. They kind of hit it off or whatever.
That's such a vibe exchange. You got shitty teeth.
Yeah, you got shitty teeth. So anyways, so what's the word? Okay, yeah. He goes home and he looks for his camera because he's placed there some shit. He's weird. While he's looking for it, he finds like a small box with a bunch of negatives in it that he just doesn't know where it came from. He's just like, where did this come from? He doesn't like too much of it. It's like it's negatives. Someone might try.
Does he know the level to which he's schizophrenic? Or is he kind of in denial?
He's not like, and then he just sometimes he can't tell when things are real. He knows he's schizophrenic, but
He doesn't know.
In a sense,
how-
we're on the journey with him.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, sure.
He just goes through some of them, photos and puts it back or whatever. He calls him Natalie, they just talk, chit chat. He goes to sleep. This guy suffers really terrible nightmares. This guy,
I need to talk to that direct.
yeah,
Stammering.
yeah, he has really terrible nightmares. I don't know exactly what he's gonna nightmares of, but I terrible nightmares. So
This is a crazy shit, yeah.
but yeah, so I'm thinking like this story architecture. I think that's gonna be like a recurring thing. That's not really like a schizophrenic thing, but kind of like it how that seems. And like shit like that. He wakes up and he gets a call from Ben. Seems like Charlie. He hasn't, but they decide to hang out later in the day. He goes to the factory or whatever. And he takes some pictures. He doesn't notice anything strange. Just kind of creepy feeling or whatever. He gets back to his place and Ben's there, and they're just kind of shit, shooting the shit or whatever, had a few drinks. Remembers the negatives, he found it and shows Ben. They're looking through them and they find one Charlie. But he's like beat to hell. Like this guy's like dead.
Wait, he's like dead or he is dead?
He's dead.
Okay.
Little Polaroid photo.
Yeah, pretty much. So they're like they knock on the door and they're like trying to find him or whatever. They call the police. You know, they're worried about him.
Charlie's the roommate, right?
Charlie's the roommate that's missing. Yeah.
Dude.
He goes like the police department. They talk and all that. Whatever. He comes.
He killed Charlie.
That's the thing. It's too freaking obvious, man. It's too
Right.
obvious.
Is that what you're struggling with?
Yeah, it's one of the things. So
What? Sorry, this is a total bullshit thing for me to say, so I apologize, but I'm saying it anyway.
Mhm.
What if Charlie's also schizophrenic and he killed himself?
not bad. I'll write that down.
I will say that when something's really obvious, it does like plant this seed of doubt in the audience. Oh, it's too obvious. There's no way it could be that. That's kind of what the first Scream did. And that's what makes that movie.
So the way newspapers work, to my understanding, is that journalists and like news outlets, they lend their reports out to newspapers and they buy it off of it, and they get money off of it. So that's how that works. And what you can probably do off of that is maybe have what was his name again? Sorry.
The main guy.
Yeah.
Jack.
Jack could maybe be like either A, wants to start his own newspaper thing and he's trying to like put himself out there, or he's trying to like market himself a network to these newspaper companies and like, hey, I can like find these fresh finds for these news reports, whatever. And it could be in a sense where maybe the reason why Charlie died, maybe he stunts a crime scene and wants to like create it so then he can get onto a newspaper company. I don't know. That's just kind of like my guess, but like some Nightcrawler type shit. I don't like, it kind of makes a little more logical sense in terms of like he's pursuing this newspaper company because he wants to put himself out there and he's networking. And you can kind of like based off on that and it kind of like the spiral into this like pursuit of like this career he wants.
What you could do is to kind of leave it at where he does kill Charlie, but due to his schizophrenia, it could have been during an episode where it was incidental. He does not mean to kill Charlie. He does. He snaps out of it. And he's like, I just fucking killed Charlie. And then that's when he kind of takes the turn where he's like, gets in a sense somewhat manic, like, how do I take care of this? Whether it be creating it into something that he can profit off of or attempting to hide it, but also having these photos, just a way to stick with he does kill him, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Obviously, he's not a reliable character, so that could be a good way to take it.
Well, you could add depth off of that from what Mitch is saying is like, he could see Charlie dying, maybe he sees someone kill him, but he actually killed him, but he's schizophrenic, He's like, oh, what the fuck? And he's all in shock. He's like, what can pour out of this? Takes a picture, sends it to whatever. And kind of like the investigation continues, and he's just like, yeah, I saw this man, describes the person or whatever. It might be this person. This person's like not a killer. I don't know, but you get what I'm saying. Like it kind of like becomes like an investigation from to figure out who the killer is, even though he kind of like in a sense staged this whole thing for himself to maximize his profit.
I don't like that.
I'm gonna skip you.
Memento means Nightcrawler, yeah, pretty much, yeah.
I haven't actually seen him.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm gonna skip to the third act really quick because I feel like it's kind of important. Charlie shows up in the third act. Charlie's alive because I said the story's the story's non-linear. So the character's linear. He thinks it's all so like when Charlie shows up, he's like, "What is going on?" But like it's actually technically act one. So I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know.
It does make sense. I highly recommend you watch Memento.
Okay, I watched
Because it's
Memento.
almost the exact same thing. So be careful, reason why I recommend you watch it is because you can watch it to gain inspiration. And like, okay, let's not do that. Let's do it in a different way. Because that's a lot of finesse to do and make sure you're not convoluting, like make it convoluted in terms of the script, story, characters, all that stuff. So that's Christopher Nolan, and the dude's a pretentious genius. So I mean,
Yeah, I'll watch Memento.
that'll help you also
Oh,
with
yeah.
navigating the timeline, especially when you have pseudo inverse timelines almost.
Pseudo inverse. I think that's a good way to put it. Pseudo inverse.
Writing
Yeah.
it down.
That way you're not like, wait, what the fuck am I doing? Because that way you don't confuse yourself.
No, yeah, writing this beat sheet, there was definitely some moments where I was like, wait, I gotta go back and change that.
Yeah, yeah. So I would write it in a sense kind of like Zion, like write it, make sure it write. I don't know, that's a lot of work. Never mind. Don't listen to me. I was gonna say like write your story, write the character story, then write the other story. Maybe make two different beat sheets if you have to. That might be actually easier. Make two different beat sheets and then kind of put together. I don't know. It's yeah. So I mean, you just gotta be very careful. Make sure it's not confusing because you have it there. I mean, it's literally like Memento meets 1 hour photo meets like color meets your mom. So you're good. You're good. You're good. So yeah.
Yeah,
No,
so
but we have to like, if we could actually hand out homework assignments, it's like memento night. Like you have to watch both of those.
Let me
movies.
put something else on the table.
all right,
Have you heard of a game called Life is Strange?
no.
Have you ever heard of Shrek?
Well, so it's a choice-based game from 2013, and it very much centers on photography, and there's also time travel. So in that way, the story is told non-linearly.
Oh my
Um,
God.
I would recommend checking it out. It's got some similar elements.
I think also sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
How could you?
What'd you say? Like I
No,
thought.
I was done.
Oh, okay.
I was
What an
joking.
asshole.
Why the photos? Like what is so important with photography to him? Like what is photography and newspaper? Like what does that mean to him? And I think that's kind of what you want. Like,
So he has like a passion for photography, and I mean, surprise, he's the one that took those negatives.
yeah.
Surprise. Well, anyways, like,
But like what does it mean to him? You might like it, but like everyone likes something, but there's meaning to it behind like oh like you like film for this reason, it means this to you, or like you like I don't know, hiking because that means something to you.
I haven't fully figured out right that.
Yeah.
He's schizophrenic. He needs to know what's real, and he can capture what's real on his camera.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Wait,
Wait, that's like my.
he always like puts tattoos on himself.
I wanted to start doing that after I saw that movie.
You're like that's
John
literally-
G.
That's
my wife.
that's literally me, guys.
Dude who's just like me. I have no idea what the
I
fuck
say
is going
dude
on.
tonight. It's gonna stay on me forever. So.
It's like
Then I wake up and what do I say?
that's kind of like the whole page. That's like I'm skipping like Act 2.
Yeah.
But
Actually, it's like the mystery part where you just try to piece in the puzzle together.
yeah, it's like he's like yeah, basically.
Yeah, for those non-linear like stories, you should always like have like your act two be like, oh, they're figuring it out. Like your act one is like the setup and stuff.
How does it end? Like what's your end game?
So the ending, like the very ending, like he he has like a breakdown, he has a breakdown. And he like kills Charlie, I guess, but like I don't know if he said yeah again. But it's like one of the other things like I'm trying to figure out how to approach that like that's the best way.
Maybe it gets to a point where he breaks down because one Charlie's alive, I guess. So it's like, oh, like his whole news thing didn't work. And it could kind of push him over to where, like, you know what, I'll do it myself and like make money. Like it could be like that last final push for his career, Or it could be any other reason. But I think if you're really trying to dive into the newspaper and photography thing, I would go all in on it and just be like, yeah, like, fuck capitalism.
With that
So-
timeline though, with like Charlie actually being alive, that's kind of fucking tripping me out because I don't know, like if he actually kills him, does that mess up the newspaper article because he actually wasn't dead? Like I don't know. That's
That's
fucking
kind of
weird.
the thing. It's like supposed to be confusing. I like David Lynch. Surprise, surprise. So it's supposed to be confusing. It's not. If I'm being quite frank, it's not all supposed to make a complete sense. It's supposed to make most.
So then maybe the ending shouldn't be Charlie dying. It should be the ending should be Charlie being alive.
Wait, what'd you say?
No, I hate that.
That's not bad.
Wait, what'd you say, Rick?
You said like Eraserhead.
Oh, okay.
I love that
I
movie.
said I hate that movie so much. I love it. Like it's just that movie.
Yeah, so like maybe like instead of him being like dead at the end, like killing him, he should be alive at the end. You're like, fuck, like all this came to nothing.
That's not.
I saw
And Charlie could be like, why did you write about me being
I saw
dead?
Fallout.
Yeah,
You know
exactly,
American
yeah.
Psycho where
Come on.
Oh
man.
yeah, I saw Fallout.
I'm not dead.
Paris.
Paris.
One thing just because you had said like, oh, he could do it. When he re-kills Charlie, it could be for like a financial or social profit.
Yeah.
It could also, going back to his schizophrenic condition, when he sees Charlie is still alive, that could very logically trigger another like episode where he kind of convinces himself like, no, you should be dead. Like you can't be
You're not real.
Yeah,
You're
like, you're dead. Like you're not
Yes.
breathing, you are dead.
Yeah.
And then his parents never existed. And he never existed.
And then another Charlie comes up.
Yeah.
There's like
Just like
three
in
more Charlies.
And then now
And he walks into a mirror and it shows that he's Charlie.
Oh,
Jackson's like, I'm in.
I'm in. I'm in. Oh yeah.
No, but yeah, you could
All POV.
definitely like first to yourself. It's like this should not like be
Hardcore Charlie.
Like this is
Hardcore Henry.
whether he thinks that he should himself to kill him or whichever direction you want to take it, just another idea to play around.
Yeah. Give him a lot of good ideas.
Just a heads up, we only have the room reserved till 6. I don't know if anyone's coming in after us, but
They do, I'm gonna punch him right in the shoulder.
oh,
nice.
oh,
I just know we have 3 more people, so.
your mom.
Wait, what time?
I'll go. I'll go.
Sounds
Speed
good.
I
run.
know, and how many sweet lies so fast.
Um, Yeah, my beat sheet's not like all that there, especially in the third act. But like jumps from like one thing to another, so just bear in mind. But pretty much let me get
I
to
like it already.
thank you. But so my logline was a dwindling yet talented musician, desperate for any job, gets caught into a new caught into a drug smuggling scandal that takes his talents to new directions. And pretty much how we start off is actually a flashback when he was a kid, where he is like, gawking over this like trumpet that's like being showcased. And he actually like steals it. He breaks the window, steals it, and the cops are chasing him, whatever. And he's hiding. And when the cops are gone, he hears this like really loud music and noise from like this basement. So he's like attracted to it. So he goes down this basement. This huge, like awesome, like glamorous party's happening. This big jazz performance, right? He's in love. And he actually like starts like looking at his trumpets, like, oh, like maybe something I might be interested in. Leaves the basement. These kids are like, oh, like, did you see the trumpet? Like, here's the money. I actually want to keep it. They actually beat him up. Like, you're a loser for liking a trumpet, Whatever. They break the trumpet, whatever. He decides to play the trumpet, it's broken, and it's like he plays it magnificently. So like time jump, he's like his name's Jasper Collymore. He's known for like playing the broken
Can you say
trumpet.
the last name again?
Collymore.
Collymore.
Yeah. He's known for like playing like the broken trumpet, Like every jazz player has like a big staple, like they're known for this or that. So his like the broken trumpet, yeah. And now it's like he's kind of like a has-been in a sense. He starts off, he's like in an agency room and like we're not gonna sign you, man. You're just like not what we're looking for. And he kind of like challenges and like, you know what, you're actually a hard person to work with. We just be honest with you, fuck off. So then he's in this old relationship with this one girl, and he's just kind of like taking the conversations always hostage, always talking about music and how he's gonna be successful, all this. She's fed up with it. She leaves. He kind of helps her leave, but like, you're making a big mistake, right? And he goes back to the basement. It's not as like cool as he like thought it was when he was a kid, It was like I really want to like change it up, right? But he sees this performance by this really magnificent drummer. He's like amazed by it. The drummer's like, hey, you should like join like my band, like a little gig we got going on down here. We're just doing like a tribute show to all these like famous musicians. He's like, I don't know if I want to do it. But then he goes back home, realizes like he has like a pain to do. Like he's not doing good anymore, right? He's like, you know what? Screw it. He goes back, he does it. He hates performing these like songs. Like he just wants to like put himself out there to this big crowd. So he starts like improv. Like, that's not what we're supposed to do. The crowd's going crazy. So then they start improvising. It's a really successful thing, right? Really perfect. It was awesome. And then one of the people in the band, named Wiley, he's like, oh, like you got to meet someone who like really likes you. And they go to like this docks to meet the person, but it turns out these guys come in, they put a bag over, so I capture them. Turns out like this really like powerful crime dude named like Archie Boyle, right? And he's like, oh, like Wiley, like this is the last straw, like pretty bold of you being here. But then he realizes that Jasper's in this. Oh, you're Jasper Cohen, like broken trumpet player. Like I fucking love you. And he's like, you know what? Since like you work with Wiley, I'll strike you a deal. And he's like, I'll give you guys venues to perform at. You can get back in the spotlight, but this will be the place where we can facilitate our drugs. And Jasper's like, I don't know, I'll think about it. And then Wiley's like, you have to do this or we will die. Like my life is on the line. So Jasper's like, you know what, fine, let's do it. Convinces the rest of the group to do it with them. They do it. It succeeds for the very first time, their first venue. And then he goes and has a drink with Mr. Boyle and having a good time. He's like, oh, he's a pretty cool person. All of a sudden, there's another person that's like owed money. So Mr. Boyle like tortures and kills, like beats the shit out of him. So like Jasper's like, holy shit, this guy's like scary, you know? He's not like this warm, like big fanboy, you know? So Mr. Boyle's like, oh, I just want to emphasize, like, oh, I'm very serious about this. And you're gonna keep doing this for me. And it's like it helps you, it helps me out. So they keep doing it, and I'm like trying to figure out like a good thing in between that moment and like this montage where we just keep doing performances after performances and money and money. And he meets this girl along the way, this new girl who loves jazz, and they fall in love. And they like there's like time jump in that montage where they have like a relationship and whatnot. And at the very near like the end, near like a third act, like Wiley kind of steals some of the money because he wants more money from like the facilitation area. He's a little dumbass, you know. Whatnot. Yeah, and so he has to pay his debts and his punishment by being killed right in front of Jasper from Mr. Forrest people. And Jasper's like, fuck. And he's like, this is crazy. Then all of a sudden, people knock on his door. Kind of like jumping around. I should probably look. But people knock on his door, and it's like Miami PD is in Miami. So Miami PD, and they're like, oh, like they have pictures of like Mr. Boyle being at his venues, really powerful people, and they've been following him. They're like, you have a very good relationship with Mr. Boyle, yada yada yada. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. We're just good friends. I don't know like what his profession is and whatnot. And then after he realizes how dangerous and like stuck he is in this situation, he pretty much tells his wife, her name is Liza, who ends up leaving him because this is too dangerous. And then like he's full of himself and he's pushing all these people away. Him and the drummer, his name's Sydney, they are not good friends. They're like clashing because it was his band and Jasper's now taking over. So Sydney's kind of mad. He's like, I don't want any part of this. I don't want to die. I'm out. Takes the other two guys, the saxophone player and the piano player, and Freddie and Timmy, their names. They leave. He's all by himself now. He's telling Mr. Boyle, like, I'm fucked. I don't have a band. I don't have people with me. And then Mr. Boyle's like, well, I'm giving you one more shot. Like, either like you come by yourself to my place because I can like a party. So you come by myself or by yourself, form, or you get a whole new band. And you're like, I'll do that in like a short amount of time. So you finally tells like the FBI and the NPD, like, yeah, I'm danger, whatnot. So they're like, all right, take this venue. We'll like, follow you, take this man down. So before he goes, Jasper's not a good person. He's made a lot of enemies throughout the way. So when he's ready to go, these people are like, oh, like, you're Jasper, right? And yeah, and they pull him out of the car and beat the living shit out of him. So now he's like unable to even like get to the venue. But he knows if he doesn't get there, he's gonna die. So regardless, he gets in his car, he's driving, he gets there full of blood all over him, like he's wearing like a white tux, all covered in blood, whatever. Performs by himself. Mr. Boyle's like, if you stop playing at all, like mess up on a note, I will kill you. He's like, oh shit. So he's performing by himself, it's all fine, like he's just going crazy on the trumpet, but like he starts like crying because he realizes like he doesn't love this anymore. This man ruined what he loved. And the FBI gets in and gets a little crazy there, and like he finally stops playing because he knows like gunshots are happening, right? Going crazy, right? Well, Mr. Boyle notices that, kind of runs away, gets caught. Fast forward his punishment for like stop playing, he loses a hand. He chopped off.
Which one?
So, I don't know yet. I don't know, but he's trumpet player, so I'm just fight right hand.
Right-handed?
Sure, we'll say he's right handed. I didn't really think about it.
No, you should though. Like
Yeah, I honestly
which one
should.
he's
Yeah,
using,
yeah. And he loses a hand, and that's what like Mr. Boyle was like, yeah, like, I don't want to kill you because I'm a big fan of yours,
but I'm taking your
but I'm taking your hand so you can stop playing. So not only he loses everyone, he loses his wife, he lost his bandmates, he also loses what he loves, which is the trumpet. And it's kind of like a little bit of a time jump. You see like the other three guys that left, they're actually succeeding in the band, together. And you can kind of see like, I don't know, I'm thinking it might be a little too cliche, but I have Mr. Boyle there at that performance. He's kind of like gonna have the drummer as his new muse. So I kind of like have that at the end, like, and then you have Jasper back in his own like an old apartment now. He's not in this luxurious home anymore, and he tries to play the trumpet again, and he plays actually very well because Jasper's a very good performer, but it's his own self that's holding him back from all these things. So like, he breaks down and cries because he knows that like he'll never be the same again after what just occurred, and that's how it's gonna end.
I think the ending is it's so ridiculously important that you are able to show and portray that he comes to the conclusion that this was his own doing. not just like a I'm crying like what was me thing.
Yeah.
I'm crying like I'm a fuck up. I can't believe what I've done.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. I kind of want to focus like oh like everyone's leaving. It's like it's their fault. She's like the first girl that leaves. Like I'm
Right,
I'm gonna be the
I was
best performer.
totally picking up on
Yeah.
throughout the whole.
And then like the other
Yeah.
people leave. And it's like well like he's trying to convince these people that this is like big money. This is a big deal, you know. And they're all leaving him, and it's kind of like oh it's your fucking fault. I'm like the good performer. Even from the agent, kind of in the beginning, kind of calls it how it is. Like you're hard to work with. You're an asshole. Like we don't want you here.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like kind of telling you who he is as a person from the beginning. And he doesn't
Like I
change
said,
at all.
Totally, like I was picking up on like every
Yeah,
single point,
yeah.
which is why it's like that is going to be like creme de la creme at the end. Like
Yeah.
you got to make sure that I don't know
It
how you're
hits
gonna
hard.
go about it because it's very difficult to without being so expository explain what your character is thinking. Obviously, but that's what's really gonna put the cherry on top.
It's like a whiplash meets Boogie Nights.
I was thinking Whiplash. I pick up on the Boogie Nights though. I
Yeah.
love that movie.
Yeah. But yeah, I know. I just make sure that.
I think another thing, this is just like entertainment factor.
Uh-huh.
You can do so many cool things with drugs and music.
I do have a part when they're celebrating, like after the first time he hangs out with Mr. Boyle before he like tortures that dude. They're like he like pressures Jasper into doing coke,
Mhm.
and that kind of like it starts like a new obsession too, and like how he like that shit like fucks him up too. So
Mhm.
but yeah.
Do a line of coke off of one of the drums. I don't know.
I go.
That's
Just
what
go
I'm
crazy.
saying. You could do a lot of really
Go
just
crazy.
fun things with
Yeah.
it. So that's
Yeah.
don't get too blinded by
Yeah.
like your like
Well, I want to make it as ambitious as I possibly can, but I also want to kind of scale it back in the same time too, to where it kind of feels like more like you're like a biopic, you know, like you're like, oh, this could actually really happen. Like I don't know if you have you seen Tar?
Yeah.
not yet. It's on my list, but it's supposed to be.
You know how like Tar feels like a true story, but it's really not.
Isn't it? Well,
No,
it's kind of.
it's all fiction.
Lydia Tarr's a real person.
No, she's not.
She literally is.
No, she's
Lydia
no,
she fucking is.
Yeah, Lydia Tarr is a very real
What?
Somebody, I was reading the letterbox reviews and somebody was like, this movie is bullshit.
Someone made a Wikipedia account of Lydia Tarr, but she's not real. Look, it's Lily Kate Blanchett on Wikipedia. She's not a real person.
Lydia Tarr is not real. Tar is not based on a true story. Everything I said above is taken from the Tar script, which is again fictional and not based on a true story. Lydia Tarr is a made-up character that a lot of people on the internet are having a lot of fun with.
They're making the meme that she's real. Yeah. So that's why I'm like, well, like imagine you watch this movie and you're like, holy shit, like Jasper Collins. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, she's not a real person. But that's kind of how I want to make Jasper, my character, is like kind of like Lydia Tarr version.
That's badass.
Yeah. So yeah. Don't have a title, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, I like it.
Can I suggest a title?
Go for it, yeah.
Brass.
Brass. Straight
I'm
up.
into it.
Brass.
I was thinking of bullhorn, but
That works too.
Brass bullhorn.
I don't know. I just think like extravagant movies with single word like titles
Yeah.
are just so much more impactful. Like just so much more impactful. And then like super mundane stories or like realistic stories. Like yeah,
the
like
killing of two lovers.
yeah, or like Eric's like what was your title that you have right now?
Trouble being around in the 21st century.
Yeah, when it's something that's like very humanistic, like
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like just that juxtaposition and contrast is always so enjoyable.
It's funny. I'm watching a movie at Sundance. The title is literally called "My Parents Were Abducted by Aliens, and Now I Kind of Feel Left Out."
Yeah, like
Yeah, but I was thinking of bullhorn. He suggested brass, something that's like percussion based. I guess I want to keep it in percussion based, or you know,
Yeah.
I want to keep it simple. That's what.
Lash.
Yeah. Lash whip nights boogie.
nice. Yeah. Do you have any questions or concerns?
Do you guys have any questions?
Do you know how The Last of Us games end?
Well, yeah, I do.
This is just like that.
Oh, I was just thinking just because you know, I honestly the way I wanted his hand to be cut off was the way. Have you seen Game of Thrones?
Nope, not a single episode.
Anyone guys seen Game of Thrones?
You're talking about
Well,
James.
Jamie Lannister, yeah, you know how he's the best swordsman in Westeros, loses his hand, right? It's kind of like he
Yeah.
technically is the best trumpeter.
But
out
then he
there.
goes back to being the best swordsman in Westeros.
Yeah, so like his hands off, his hands cut off, and he's playing the trumpet amazingly. It's just like, oh, you're still the best trumpeter even without it.
Hold on, I found a video of him
I
getting.
mean, their best pretty shit if you can just rock it with one.
Have this mute.
He's such an asshole. Though. It's like no one wants to. It's like Kanye. I feel like no one wants to work with Kanye anymore. Like, come on. Come on.
Anybody Jewish?
It's like, hear me out, guys.
That's why I made the joke.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's figured. Yeah.
What do you mean graduation? Yeah, yeah. I don't really have any questions. I mean, I think just making sure Act 3 is, not super like insane to where it detracts from the story, but to where like at least the tension is better than the payoff. Makes sense. Yeah, like him getting to there to perform the actual performance, and then of course the FBI comes in and whatnot. But like, I feel like it's more about the tension than the actual payoff. Because I feel like the tension's always better than the payoff.
9 out of 10 times, yes.
Yeah.
Unless you're like, unless the payoff is just completely outlandish. Then yeah.
So I just yeah.
Hell yeah.
Badass.
Thank you.
So you know that. Thank you.
Yeah, we talk about that stuff.
Who's the next person you got?
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, hashtag Vice, no, picks the very best one, and you are it.
Not it.
Not
It's you are it.
It's you are it.
You are it.
For sure.
Guys.
Not funny.
I'm like, it's just because I don't have a story.
Yeah, so actually, I'm a biomedical science major. Great for fun. So,
Is that also a joke? You're basically lying.
Yes.
Well, he was a biomed.
You were a biomed major? I'm sorry.
He found the
No, like it's impressive, but like going through that is just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm so
Especially
sorry. Yeah,
here.
like that is good for you. Like good for you.
Appreciate it.
Because that is that's a
if it makes
Well,
you feel
I could
better,
never- I could
OChem made me want to chop my head off. So
or your hand.
Your hand.
Whoa.
yeah, it's true.
Or you want to kill Charlie.
That way, it is. I was thinking.
Or stab yourself with acid. I mean,
with
Stab
acid.
yourself with
acid on acid. My acid. With acid in a knife, like.
Yeah, that's what a medic story calls that called acid knife.
It's actually a really band name. Acid Knife. That's a good band name.
Anyway, so I'm not sure what the title of my story is, but the character is Ismael Delgado Ornales.
Ismail?
Ishmael.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the Ismael? I can't
With an
remember.
H or no H?
ISMAEL.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Anyway, so it's about his life and his journey from the age of roughly 9 years old to being 24. It's the length of the story. And I want to start off when he's 9 and then have different chunks of ages. So not just 9, run it through 24, 9, 12, 15, 16, 17, 18, roughly like that. And how I'm going to break up the story along with those certain ages is 9 years old will just be the foundation of innocence. And then each of those clusters of numbers and age going on will represent or mimic the 5 stages of grief. And then when you get to the end, when he's 24, when he's kind of becoming a man stepping into actual adulthood, that's when he'll have the acceptance phase.
What is he grieving?
So I want the story to be, I want the audience to feel present in his life. I want them to feel like at the end of the film, I know it's the script, but in your mind when you read it, that almost like he's somebody that you used to know that you grew up with.
Basically, yeah.
Sort of vibe. That's kind of what I want to go for. And the grief is really just life. And that life isn't all sunshine and rainbows, as everybody knows.
Life is grief.
Grief is life.
You learn from your grief, your pain, your suffering.
Exactly. And not everything's just going to be in the dumpster, just everything's shit, fuck my life. It's over. Yeah, it would end at 16.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But That's the majority of the story. And I don't want it to be like, oh, life sucks, you should just give up on it. I don't want that to be the message, but I just want the understanding to be that life is sort of a grief process because it's finite. Nobody lives forever, and that there is some level of that you have to understand as you that even though you're working towards being an adult, that's not going to last forever. There's nothing really beyond that. So I just want people to kind of have that realization. At the same time, I want that acceptance to be not that of it's over for me, but that you can still make the most out of what you have, even if it's only for X amount of time. That's kind of the story. So going through the stages of grief, I can't remember them off the top of my head. I have them written down.
Denial.
Bargaining.
Bargaining.
Like anger.
Acceptance.
No, there's one before that.
Stages.
Denial, bargaining,
Is it depression one of them?
depression.
Anger, depression.
Anger, yeah, anger, depression,
Depression.
acceptance.
Right.
Anger, bargaining, depression.
We killed that guys.
Crushed it.
Crushed
We're all
it.
psych majors. So like I said, 9 years old will kind of be innocence, and I want that to kind of be laughable, but at the same time, the innocence won't be typical, where it's like, oh, I got a puppy, and then my mom took me on a picnic, and then I got picked up from school and we got gummies. Not like that. It'd be like,
Like gummies.
Ice cream.
Like Sour Patch Kids.
I don't know, when I was
Be a different type of gummies, that's all I'm saying.
when I was a kid, like one of the best treats I got like, once a year was sour gummy. Oh, that was fucking lit. Now I got it once a year.
You only got sour gummy worms.
I
once a
feel
year.
like
Wow.
Yeah, it was,
Okay.
you know,
fused gummies.
yeah, he knows where I'm going with that. Oh wait, it's really fucking hot in here.
It is hot.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Dude, when I was doing my pitch, I was like sweating like a fucking horse. So.
Took my cardigan.
Whoa.
So 9 years old, like I said, will be kind of the innocence phase, but the innocence isn't in such like there are no consequences, but more of that feeling of freedom.
Mhm.
Whereas like, oh, my feeling of freedom and innocence was when I was hopping over fences, getting chased by dogs, running through the arroyo, where we're running from other people, like where it feels like you can't die, like you're gonna live forever and that you're just running away from your problems and they won't catch up to you. That sort of innocence, as opposed to what I was talking about earlier. And then that will lead into kind of more realizations where you have the denial, where you're like, well, I'm still a kid, I'm 12 years old, but you know, I can't really pretend like I'm gonna be 9 forever or I'm 12 forever. Like I'm gonna have to grow up, sort of thing. So I'll have like let's say an older cousin will go to jail or something, where it'll be like, oh shit, like that's for real. Like I know I'm 12, but he's 18. Like that's the consequences of these actions. And then 15 and 16 will be like relationally, like they'll have a girlfriend or something. And then that won't work out. He'll be like, well, you know, my family's going to shit, can't get a girlfriend, so fuck this sort of kind of thing where he's like, I'm trying to bargain for some sort of like material value, like whether that's in people or getting money, things like that. He's trying to have things that make him feel like he's whole. And after that, I think it'd be like 18 where he has to kind of move on in life. That'll be the anger portion where he's like, I don't want to grow up. Like this is so frustrating. Like, fuck life. Like why does it have to be so difficult? Sort of thing. Then the depression phase will be like, you know, like I'm about to hit the off button here pretty soon. Like this isn't working for me. I'm not sure exactly how I'll flush those out in terms of like lifetime events, but more or less those will be the feelings during that time. And once he gets to 24, he'd be like, you know what, you know, I'm alive, I have a job, I'm a grown man now. I can't just sit in my house and feel bad for myself. Like there's a whole world out there that I've never explored. I've spent most of it grieving about my life that's only been this long. And there's so much potential in what is to come. And I just want him to have that realization.
Like maybe he grew up thinking he's gonna be an astronaut. Maybe he went to college studying aerospace fucking engineering and fucking walked out and
Yeah.
It's just coming to terms that he accepts like his role. Like, yeah.
I'm gonna give you a piece of advice that I receive constantly because all of my work is very depressing and pessimistic. And when you're, like kind of in a sense representing grief through this story, that's something that is important, but you don't want to, you don't want your audience to come out and be like, wow, I feel just like that. Can't be that. But it's kind of like when you come to the conclusion, like outside of everything in your own life, where you're like, yeah, life is meaningless, but that's because like you decide what it means to you. You know what I mean?
Can't move for real.
Yeah, for real. But like if you like you decide what it means, so making sure that is the note we're left on, where it is like I'm not saying it's like you said, like a hopeful, joyous ending where they're all celebrating together at like a huge anniversary party with a wedding cake. Um, but to kind of give that light at the end of the tunnel, metaphorically and I guess physically in this movie, I think that's the through everything could be the most important factor is that we get left on that light at the end of the tunnel, that hopeful note, whether it not being overbearing, but that is important.
I have one thing to say. Kind of think about like how like you just recently said how like oh like when he's 24 he like looks back how like oh like I spent my life so much time like just grieving. I feel like it'd be best if you don't mention grieving at all, and it's more of the audience to interpret these 5 stages of grieving.
Oh, yeah.
Because like yeah, well it reminded me of a quote from Nomadland. I guess it's in Nomad. But it's like, so I stayed same town, same house, just like my dad used to say, what's remembered lives. I maybe spent too much time in my life remembering. So like I feel like it should be more of like how he's caught up in the whole moments.
Yeah, I wrote that.
Yes. Yeah, I'm correcting my mind. But no, I'm saying like I feel like if you talk about and you kind of agree with me, but like make sure it's more for interpreting like oh yeah, like this age, like yeah, we can see the innocence here in some way, whether it's like on the nose or not, like oh we see like angry depression here. Instead of like, oh, like throughout my life I've grieved. In this age I felt this, and that,
Right, yeah.
So like make sure in a sense it's very clever to where like like I see
Show
that.
it up.
Yeah, and like yeah, it's like yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm just thinking of Despicable Me. His character.
Well, fuck.
But just people me, but we're the minions.
Yeah.
I have a recommendation. You should read The Myth of Sisyphus. I feel like
Was that English?
Sisyphus.
The Myth of Sisyphus. I don't know. You talking
Sisyphus.
earlier. You were Sisyphus. Kind of like like yeah, I'm feeling really down. Like there's still like that hope at the end of the tunnel. I was like, that is that book. Exactly. He's just like Sisyphus, just rolling that rock up that hill.
And it never goes anywhere. It's just I'm pushing my boat.
You must imagine him heavy. Anyways,
Pushing my
this
boat.
I just like a tricky question. How are you gonna like do the transitions, or do you know like?
Are you gonna like mark it with like denote it with like ages? Because it seems like you want to move through his life by like points, like certain age points, like maybe 9, 12, 18. You know what I mean?
Right. I don't want to say, okay, now we're this age, or now we're feeling this. I want to try and avoid that. And I want to more contextualize the feelings and the age based on what happens in life. Like I could say, like, fuck being a sophomore, you're halfway through high school. Well, that gives you a rough idea where you're at in life. You're not gonna be like, oh, is he 23? Like, yeah.
Well, another thing you can also use, you can use like a plot device, like something where it's like maybe like he lives in the same house the entire and growing up, and as time progresses, he transition from one age to the other, or it could be something else that like maybe he has nice passion about, and you see it like whether like if it's like a house, the house like slowly age, or it's like he loves like color. See the sketchbook, and you see like the pages get thinner.
Like he has a watch, it doesn't fit.
Sure, yeah, or like something, or like it's on his dresser next, like when you transitioning to like the next scene, maybe it's on the floor and it's like a little bit older, or like something like that. Because then it's kind of like you're seeing something that's important to him and the story, and you're also getting an idea like, oh, this looks like it's corroding. This looks
It
older.
would be interesting to see his like shifting interests throughout the years too. Because you mentioned like coloring. Maybe he was into that when he was younger, and then we see like his old coloring books or sketchbooks on his desk or whatever. Now he's in soccer. So he's got a fresh new soccer ball on his desk. And like later on that.
Or yeah, or soccer at first, and like the trophy could be like in a trash bin, and it's now something else, or something like that. Or like this is like really like
Like his
Right.
life
And the trophies
culminates
replace
in his
football.
room.
Needless to say, you have a lot of options.
yeah. And I think that would actually make it a little more interesting because then as an audience, like okay, time has passed. This is
Mhm.
interesting to see, and then you can say like, oh, I hate high school, I hate college, or like no one's taking me to prom, or like it's pretty basic stuff you can put in there.
I was also thinking um, side characters who help push the story forward, whether that be his cousins or his grandparents or things like that. Having them show some resemblance of aging as well, like to help
Sure.
show that like it's not just him who's feeling like he's growing older. Everybody is. It's a universal concept.
Well, it'll be interesting actually, because I feel like I don't know, at least from my perspective from growing up, I feel like adults don't age as much as we do. Are constantly growing, You watch a show, there's a kid in the show, like season like 24, they're gonna be like in their 30s, And the adults look the exact same, And I feel like it'd be interesting where like if the adults don't actually age, this is the perspective of him, like these people are always who he perceives them to be, And I think that's a very interesting way to see, like, like he knows himself is growing, but he doesn't realize there's other lives out there. Other people are getting older. Like, there's a whole different life. Like, this person's life means something else, And I think that'd be actually very interesting.
I think keep throwing out the word interesting, but I think it is interesting because in my experience,
Mhm.
I've actually experienced the opposite.
Opposite.
Where like my grandparents, like I remember my grandpa, he could used to throw like the football with me. And then there was a point where he couldn't even go outside. Then he passed away, sort of thing. Like I saw him age like rapidly growing up. Like my dad,
Mhm.
I remember like we could wrestle
Holding
as
your
a
nose.
kids, not something like that.
No, that's something you can definitely incorporate.
Yeah.
Like age treats people differently. My grandma is like super fit and she's like 65, but my grandfather, on the other hand, is like, decrepit compared. So,
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, whatever perspective you like, I think if you do one or the over the other, emphasize on the meaning of obviously, well, because we're all aging and getting older, but like,
That voice.
it's a movie. We're supposed to make everything mean something, right? So, but
Here we go. Give him a best friend, make him OD.
His best friend's his cousin, so I think some fuck shit's gonna happen there.
Rude.
His cousin that goes to prison.
Well, that's just an idea that I've had, or like he dies.
Hypothetically,
shanked in person.
in an alternate universe, do I know this cousin?
Yes.
Anyway,
Loosely based off of my life.
I don't think anyone's shown up yet, so
do you have any questions before we move on?
I guess this is kind of an ambiguous question. It's kind of hard to tell, especially at this phase of the story. But is my concept intriguing, or does it kind of sound like run of the mill? Like, yeah, I've seen
I think you can make
been
it
there, done that.
for sure.
I totally understand that question because I mean I'm sure we've all, at least I have, I'm sure we've all had an attempt at our life inspired screenplays, however we depict them. And it is always a concern, like maybe this is just interesting to me because it's my life. But I think the creative take you have on it and the way you're portraying it is what makes it interesting. With the time jumps, with the subplot of grief as the whole film. I think the direction you're taking it in is what's going to make it interesting. It may not be the base plot of we see his life change over the years, but all of that subtext that you have is what makes it very intriguing in the direction you're taking it as well. So don't be afraid to lean into that.
Yeah, I think one thing you should also do right when you're about to write is kind of like understand what does this character want, what do you need, and make sure you're staying consistent with that when he's growing up. Because then we have an idea like, okay, this character, like he wants to do this, he has this, he needs this, like then it goes kind of like that basic structure of a story. We're like, okay, where's this character? Because you don't really have like an actual like dramatic story like as we all do in a way, you're just kind of like an encapsulation of a man's life. So there's not much of like, like mine like music, or yours is about like a relationship with your sister, or yours is about some psychotic and then yours is about, the apocalypse, and yours is about like this love and loss, desires and reality stuff. So I mean, make sure that you're able to create some sort of like intrigue with the character because it is about the character, not the story.
Like just find a way to like make it unique from other projects that perhaps have inspired you.
Then call it Boyhood, Moonlight, Fablemans.
So haven't seen that one.
Fabled
Kevin's
Moonboy.
really good.
That one is-
I heard it was mid.
What?
I love Paul Dano though.
Oh, I do love.
He's actually kind of weird in it. Not gonna lie.
He's weird in every movie.
Yeah.
He's
But
a-
that
I'm sorry, I'm a sucker for it because it really is a movie about a guy wanting to make movies. So I mean, can't
It
go.
I
just
am
like
gonna watch
it
it
looks
soon.
so cheesy.
Huh?
Did you see Babylon?
I did see Babylon.
That
Babylon was
I
incredible.
heard people thought it was mid.
See, I think it's
I
really
didn't watch
fun.
I'm not people.
Word. Word?
No, but
No word?
no, I thought Babylon was excellent. I loved it.
That was so.
And I think
good.
the
If
reason
you
I
like
like
nudity, that movie's right up your
Oh,
alley.
yeah, but also like
Third
another reason that I have
Robbie?
like, yes. But one reason why I also really like that movie is because the ending should not work at all.
But it does.
But it does. And I think that's
It's like a high school like montage that
Yeah,
you make for like 2 seconds.
exactly. And it's like it doesn't, it shouldn't work, but it
Yeah.
does. And I
Yeah.
think that's why I like it so much.
Well, it was funny because like in my 275
Yeah.
class,
Oh,
like,
It's
editing
the one
class,
HBO.
it was like, all right, guys, like you have to go to like get stock videos and like get like make like a montage of it. And I did like a whole bunch of movie clips. Then I watched Babylon. I'm like, hey, I could have done that in my 275 class.
Oh, where did I get that?
Yeah. Just like copied it, but the movie wasn't out yet at the time, so I like had no clue. But yeah. All right, Mitch.
All right. So I am still like in the process of making my like official beat sheet. I have all the beats, I'm just transferring it all over to one document. So I'll go through what I have there and then I'll switch over to the other one that I'm still transferring from. But I won't go beat by beat because I'm not even halfway through and I'm 3.5 pages in. But the intro is not necessary. The intro is technical.
Oh, guys, someone's here. I think we gotta go. No, sorry.
You go sit somewhere else.
I mean, we could talk about it outside for a minute.
Yeah, I will do it very.
Well, and then we'll end the video here, and then we'll just vouch for you and like Mitch explain.
I promise he did it.
I think.
You know, Mitch didn't say shit, man. Well, we should probably see the video that gets freaked out. So.
I will upload it to you.
You better like a cool intro, like
Yeah.
What is up? What is up, guys? It is your boy Erik here, and